Thank you. Thank you for agreeing to speak to me
Of
and
course.
and also to speak to my students because I'm sure you're actually my first interviewee. You're my first fabulous woman in tourism that I'm interviewing. So I'm very excited about it. And
Oh, good.
yeah, absolutely. So I really want to keep this thing very informal,
Hmm.
very kind of, chatty from woman to woman and going down, deep all the things that we might face as challenges and the kind of learning and lessons that you
Yeah.
could share with my students, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, so Ingrid, welcome. And I, so it was really super interesting to do a little bit more research about you because I came across you on a webinar, and that all had to do with accountancy. And accountancy, normally we have an image of it as being populated by very boring people, and you are everything but boring, which is why I got in
Thank
touch with
you.
Um, and I loved, so first of all, I love the fact that your company is called Polymath. And I know what polymath is because I have a friend who brands herself as a polymath, but it's a word that is not used regularly. So can you explain what it is, what it means, and what it
Yeah.
means to you as well?
A polymath is an old-timey word for a Renaissance person. So a lot of people think math and they think mathematics, but math is actually the Greek word for skills. So polymath literally means many skilled. So it's somebody who has a lot of knowledge and a lot of variety in skill sets.
And a lot of people, when they're good at doing a lot of things and have a lot of skills, feel very lost in trying to focus on what it is that they should be doing in their life. What is your experience with that? How did you, manage to feel good about being a polymath and not feel lost?
Yeah. So I think the important thing is to ensure that it is really rooted in a single core focus. And for me, my vision in the polymath business is to make the world a better place built on a foundation of thriving small businesses. So I may have a lot of different ways in which I go about that, but that's the main core thing. That's kind of, if you've heard of Simon Sinek before, he wrote the book Start With Why. That's the
I
why.
teach, yeah, everything that I teach is on the basis of Simon Sinek, and my dream is to marry him one day. So
I often joke, I have a brain crush on that man. I want to turn into a zombie so that I can eat his brain.
oh my God. Like when he comes on, I'm like, Simon, I'm
Yep.
here.
He's got such fantastic content and it all just makes perfect sense and it's so intuitive. I absolutely love it. So that's kind of our why, is to make the world a better place built on a foundation of thriving small businesses. And we do that in a variety of ways. And one of the main things that we do, because we recognize that that's not something that I can do all by myself in my lifetime. We need to be working together, which is one of the reasons I was so excited when you reached out and said, hey, can we collaborate? Because collaboration is one of the ways that we do that, how we can create a rising tide that raises all ships. And so often I see people focusing on just themselves and their business and how they can make a buck. And we're going to be a lot more effective working together than we are seeing each other as competition. Competition is a limiting belief with a foundation in the idea of a zero-sum game, the idea that if somebody wins, somebody else has to lose. And that's not how I think. That's not how I go about things. And I believe that we can create win-win scenarios out of just about anything if we're willing to wrap our minds around the possibilities.
So I love what you said because my next question was about if you had to tell me about your vision and if you had to phrase it, a dream of a world where. So you kind of really quote the words out of my mouth, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful to be speaking to a conscious, intuitive accountant who is a
Yeah.
polymath.
Well, and dreaming of a world where, I guess the dreaming of a world where behind the vision making the world a better place built on a foundation of thriving small businesses is that I believe that if more people were making good money doing what they love, that lo and behold, we'd be surrounded by happier, healthier people. And that is the world that I want to live in. And what's more, if more of our global economy were made up of thriving small businesses, that is something that our legislators would need to listen to, and it would give the people a bigger voice. And so encouraging more people to follow their dreams, that's really the big piece behind it, is finding ways to encourage people to get past imposter syndrome and anything else, any limiting beliefs that are holding them back, and really follow their dreams and stop making excuses about why they're not following their dreams. Like, let's get the excuses out of the way, find out how we can go for it. That is the big picture, the world where behind that why.
So, oh my God, so I've got so many leads. So I'm going to go with the intuitive one. When you speak about stop making excuses, how does that relate to the work that you do? Like, how do you put that into your job as an accountant?
Yeah, so my job, that's one of the tricky things. My job as an accountant, the world of accounting is changing. And what people see as the typical role of an accountant has changed, primarily with technology, because the things that accountants have done for decades is now being automated by technology. The transactional management of data is being automated by technology. And we're getting to a point now where accounting professionals can start to have deeper relationships with their clients, talking about the bigger, deeper topics. And this is one of the main things when I talk about making the world a better place built on a foundation of thriving small businesses. One of the biggest ways that I do that is by teaching what I do to other accounting professionals so that they can help other business owners in other industries. My company focuses on the tours and activities industry, and those are kind of my ideal clients because that's who I love playing with and really want to work with. And other accounting professionals may resonate with a different industry more effectively. And we get out of the competition mindset, and I work to help raise them up so that they can help more businesses all over the world by helping other clients that I'm not working with. So that's another way that we're creating a rising tide that raises all ships. When we look at you say my job as an accountant, the way that I work with clients, and you were asking about the accountability side of things, it really comes down to recognizing that each of us as human beings walking this path that we're on in life have lessons that we need to learn and limiting beliefs, particularly around money, that we need to work through. All of us were born with families and adults surrounding us that had beliefs about money, wealth, value, poverty. And a lot of those beliefs were passed down to us as just, this is how it is. And now we're adults running adult businesses in an adult world. And we often don't even think about how those beliefs affect our daily choices. Our daily choices about how we run our business, our daily choices about where we may be leaving money on the table, about where we may be wasting money or wasting time in the interest of saving money. But how much is our time worth? Our time is priceless. So really thinking about money in a different way. And that's one of the classes that I teach to accounting professionals, is how to approach their clients in a consultative capacity to help them work through their chronic poverty mindset, because chronic poverty mindset is endemic in our culture. Almost everyone is being held back by limiting beliefs surrounding money. And those are some of the first things that we need to address, and recognizing when our clients are encountering some of those limiting beliefs and helping them to work through them with compassion and understanding, rather than telling them they're wrong and that they need to change, showing them that there's another way, and showing them that they can choose this other way, but they have to choose it, because no one can choose it for them.
And do you find that, in your experience, do you find that women entrepreneurs have got more limiting beliefs around money than men? Or
No.
do you find that there are different limiting beliefs, or that it's the same?
It's often very similar. There may be some slightly different limiting beliefs based on gender, but for the most part, it's very human. It's what we grew up with. It was passed down from our parents, and sometimes we get more of our limiting beliefs from our mom. Sometimes we get them from our dad. Sometimes it's teachers in school. It's wherever we happen to pick these things up. The main thing is that they're often rooted in ideas of self-worth. And so often people see their own personal value as somehow being reflected in their balance sheet. And it's not effective. And it's so amazing, actually, when we flip that equation, how much our financial abundance can grow once we start to see our own value apart from the financial aspect of things. And it makes it so that we as people are more able to produce abundance when that abundance is no longer a factor tying itself to our ideas of self-worth.
So what do you think then of the expression, your net worth is your self-worth? When you hear...
I think it's total bunk. I think that we need to, that's a limiting belief that we need to break out of. Yeah, our net worth has nothing to do with our self-worth. And if we think about the ideas of disruption in our businesses and also in our lives, we learn a lot more from our failures than we do from our successes. And I think that our personal self-worth is much more effectively quantified by the lines on our faces than by anything on paper.
So what, are you saying that the more wrinkles we have, the better?
Every lesson learned upon your beautiful face.
Okay, I have to tell you, I just love this because it's going somewhere that I had, that I didn't know was going to happen. When it's about something, it's always about something different than what you think it's going to be about.
Yeah.
So I had to do a couple of pictures because I've lost my passport. I'm traveling in Peru, so I've got to renew my passport, and I had to go to the shop to take pictures. And I suddenly realized, because that was 10 years before that I had my old picture taken, how I had aged, and I really freaked out. And I thought, oh my God, all these wrinkles, how could it be possible?
Congratulations, you've earned them.
Yes, thank you so much. I have gone through healing with you just right now. This is really... Oh my God. And I love what you say about all those mistakes that really add to our wisdom. It is beautiful. And the piece of wisdom that you shared at the beginning about the fact that collaborating is so much more powerful than competing.
Yes.
So I'd love to know, because it's always, there is always this fear that comes into you when you're doing business, and you do look, at the competition, and you do feel a bit uncomfortable, and you think, oh my God, am I doing as well as they can? Have you ever felt like that? I mean, and do you continue still to feel that fear from time to time?
I have felt that way before. And I think occasionally it kind of niggles its way in the same way that somebody who is trying to break out of a habit of substance abuse will occasionally relapse. It's very easy for us to fall back into old thought patterns when we're encountered with an old habit, essentially. And this is something that we encounter a lot, especially with money and pricing and things like that. We tend to fall back into the old limiting beliefs, the old thought patterns that maybe weren't serving us. Mm. And when it comes to that idea of comparison, why are we comparing? Because when we stop comparing ourselves and trying to judge our self-worth in comparison to anyone else, it becomes a totally different ballgame when we look at how can we work together. I mean, when you first reached out to me and you said, hey, maybe we can do something together, I could have looked at your email and said, oh, this woman might be my competition. She's doing, coaching with other tours and activities companies and working with potential clients that could be my client. There are so many tours and activities companies in the world. How on earth could either of us help all of them? Let's find ways to work together and help all of them more effectively. And you know what? Some of them might resonate more effectively with you and your communication. Some of them might resonate more effectively with me. And either way, we all win when we stop competing. So yes, I could look at your website and start comparing myself against you, and it wouldn't do me any good. All that does is cut people down. Whereas if we start celebrating our valuable differences, and this is something that I'm taking straight from Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Yes.
He talks in habit number 6 about creating synergy experiences, recognizing that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. And when we focus on working in synergy with other people, celebrating our differences, that we will come up with solutions together that no individual one of us would ever come up with alone. And that is where the real value is. That's where the gold mine is. And that's where I really enjoy living. So now when I encounter a colleague that, maybe my competition, I say, hey, sounds like we've got some things in common. Like we've got similar interests. We could be friends. You want to play? And that's a lot more fun than comparison shaming myself.
I love that. And I love bringing play into work and making it about creating something that's completely new. That's really wonderful. So let's go back to these things about valuable differences. I love that. Because one of the things that I teach on my course is about your niche. What makes you unique. What do you have in your heart that can help you create a totally authentic business to yourself? That's how I understand authenticity in the tourism industry.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and who do you cater to really have a clear positioning as well, because that enables you to really hone on the people that you want to work with.
Yeah.
So so first of all, what is your niche? And did you always have a clear idea from the beginning that you had a specific niche? Or did you go through a process in order to find that niche?
I went through a process to find that niche. So within the accounting world, and this is something that I actually teach now at accounting conferences, is how to really drill into and identify a niche in the accounting profession. And when I first started Polymath in 2008, we were just a bookkeeping firm, We did the back end compliance transaction management work for a variety of clients, mostly locally here in Southern Oregon. And it was a several year growth and transition process through that for myself as an entrepreneur, of becoming an employer and having an office space and starting to figure out which client relationships I really enjoyed and which ones maybe weren't a fit for me, and ceasing the judgment about which ones weren't a fit for me, and recognizing that it's okay if something's not a fit, that means that we're growing and changing and figuring out our tastes, and that there are other people who are a fit and that those relationships are okay. And so now anytime I'm starting a relationship with a new client, I like to make it really, really clear that I want them to have the best fit for their needs, even if it's not with me, and that I'm not attached to the outcome of that relationship. It's not a sell. But getting back to your question, the process of really refining and defining that niche, I went through my list of clients. Actually, it was back in 2015. I had a lot of clients. And it was right when my firm was switching over to value pricing also, which is a huge shift. People should not be billing by the hour at this point. Our clients don't want to hear about the labor pains. They want to see the baby, and our time is priceless. The question is, are our clients getting value for the services that we're providing? And do they feel and see that value? Is it working? Are we creating a win-win relationship? And a win-win relationship is not based upon time. So switching over to value pricing and realizing that I needed to form deeper relationships with fewer clients and focusing on the clients that wanted a deeper, more advisory relationship with me and who didn't just see me as essentially their accounting maid. And since then, now over the last 4 years, I've continued to refine and define and really drill into which of those relationships I specialized in and which conversations I really enjoyed. So I stopped working with nonprofits. I stopped working with contractors and restaurants. And it really came down to the day when I realized that I knew exactly who my favorite client was and that I needed to clone him. At that point, I had one tour company. And I said, you know what? I want more clients like this one. And I started drilling into exactly what that client's needs were. And when it came to the technology and budgeting for seasonal businesses, those were the things that I was just so nerdy excited about. And the conversations that, we can automate all of the back end compliance, either automate it or find ways that their team can manage that part. And that allows me to just do the oversight to make sure that stuff is getting done correctly. And then really focus on the big picture strategy conversations, which is what I really, really love with my clients. I love drilling into what are their limiting beliefs and how can we grow as people? Because when it comes right down to it, our business problems are our personal problems in disguise. And oftentimes what we need is somebody to offer that little bit of reflection and outside perspective to really drill into what's really holding us back right now. Is it the disruption that we're experiencing? Because there's always going to be an excuse. Or is there something else deeper going on? Are those disruptions happening because the universe is trying to hand us a lesson that we're just not learning over and over and over again? What else can we be looking at? How can we take full responsibility for everything going on in our lives? Because when we take responsibility for our choices, we have power over creating our world around us. And that is amazing. And a lot of people are afraid of that power and they shrink from it. I really enjoy working with the people who are up for that game and want to dive in and play it with me.
That's beautifully said, and and it's the reason why I created the Fabulous Tourism Academy. It was really to actually show people and show women that they have a choice.
Yes.
And I find that really very empowering and very powerful. So when you found that one client and then thought, okay, yes, I really want more of those. Practically, that shift of letting go of the others and really focusing on what you wanted. How long did that take, and how did you make it happen?
Let's see here. So we declared our niche, like full on declared it and said, this is what we're going to do in the summer of 2016. So almost 3 years ago. And it started as more of a marketing focus, just saying, okay, we're going to clone that one client and really focus and drill in on how do we get more clients like that one? That's the one that we're looking to clone. How do we find more like that? And not having to be exclusive about it, but really just making sure that that is how we are branding our message and putting the marketing out there. So we started to shift our language to invite in more clients like that one. Now at this point, here we are 3 years later, so it doesn't happen overnight, but knowing what I know now, it could have happened faster if I had known all of the things that I've known, which is why I teach this at accounting conferences now, so that I can help other accountants go through this process a little bit more quickly. We are really focusing more exclusively. And I think that that's important, because when we're willing to take all comers, we're willing to step outside our specialty. We're willing to step outside our area of true expertise and being a gift from our gifts. And if you think about it, would you rather be a general practitioner who sees every single patient under the moon, regardless of their ailment, and is diagnosing colds and putting Band-Aids on things, you know, and then when things get really hot, they end up having to refer them to a specialist? Or would you rather be the specialized brain surgeon who knows that one thing inside and out, upside and down, and is completely confident in the solutions that they're presenting and is focused on the continuing education for that one area? Because if you think about the amount of continuing education alone that, yes, doctors, but also accounting professionals, is if as accounting professionals, we had to serve every industry out there, we'd have to know every single piece of software out there. We'd have to know every single law that's out there. It's not effective. There's no way that we can know all of that. It is so much more effective to specialize. And when we become specialized, our services have more value.
So you wholeheartedly embrace niching.
I do. Yes, I heartily embrace niching, and not just for the accounting profession. I think that that's something that, as we're watching disruption happen in the tours industry with Airbnb experiences and Google Touring Bird and TripAdvisor and the changes that they're making, TripAdvisor, Viator, Booking.com, the online travel agencies, the OTAs, are causing a pretty major disruption in the industry. And I think that this is forcing a lot of tour companies to ask themselves, who do we want to be in this new world? Because we can't stop the change, but we can figure out who are our ideal customers. How do we want them to hear about us, and how can we get in front of them? Because for a lot of these companies, their ideal customers are finding them through TripAdvisor and Touring Bird and Airbnb experiences, and that's great. They're seeing the opportunity there in that technology disruption, and they're saying 20% commission, I can handle that. It's worth it. We can raise our prices a little bit, and our margins are fine. Well, you know, we are playing the quantity game. And then there are guides that have custom itineraries and are only doing custom tours for smaller groups of people. And for them, they're playing the quality game. It's about the relationships. It's about the life-changing experiences. And how do they get in front of people who are looking for those life-changing experiences? And I think that it's important for each of us as entrepreneurs to look at our clients and realize which relationships we enjoy the most, what's really working for us. Because most often when we do this exercise, when we look at our client relationships, we're going to find that the clients who are happy to pay us the most also are the ones that we enjoy the most, and the ones who are most easily adaptable to our business changes and shifts as we realize where the disruptions are happening in our lives. Whereas the ones who are grumping about the price also don't end up feeling very good, and they're not going to sign up again. They're not going to change with us. They're not going to grow with us. So really looking at those main criteria of price sensitivity, and are you having fun with them? And also, are they going to come back? Is this a repeat relationship? And a lot of times the ones who are booking through TripAdvisor, Viator, Touring Bird, they're not necessarily looking for repeat relationships. Their actual client is TripAdvisor. Their actual client is Google. So how do you develop a better relationship with the OTA? And how do you gear your marketing to get the right client relationships through that OTA so that you've got people who are going to be thrilled on your trips? It's about who is going to love the value that you're presenting. And I feel like our clients in the tour industry can be doing that same analysis with their businesses and figuring out how to niche within their companies and really understand so that they're not trying to take all comers. They're not wasting money on advertising in venues that aren't going to bring in the right fit of customer. And it also will make it so that when they find that ideal right fit of customer, they can command a higher price for that because those customers will see the value.
So do you, with retrospect, with insight, do you think that it required a lot of courage and guts to make that decision to say, hey, I'm going to do this now? And also, what did the other people that were surrounding you, how did they react to that, to that decision that you made?
They thought we were crazy. No. Yep, I know a lot of other accounting professionals who have niched in, I guess, for lack of a better word, safer industries.
Yeah.
I know accounting professionals who niche in the medical industry, who niche in the cannabis industry, which is huge here in Oregon.
Wow.
Now that cannabis has become legalized. People who niche in health clubs, things like that. But when I said tours and activities, I'm going to focus on tours and activities, they looked at me and said, are you sure? Are there enough of those? How are you going to find them? How are you going to advertise to them? And I said, you know what? I'm going to give it a try, because this is the relationship that I want to clone. This is what I want to be doing. These are the people that I want to spend my time with, because I love travel and they love travel. And I feel like we can understand each other more effectively. Yet I've got this other thing, this other piece of knowledge in the business and accounting world that they don't have. And I want to raise up the amazing entrepreneurs who help me see and experience the world, our wonderful, beautiful world. That is what I want to do. So once again, it's creating that rising tide that raises all ships. But yeah, they thought I was nuts.
Oh, I love this. Welcome to the club of the nutty entrepreneurs. I know, because it's always a question that you ask yourself. You need to have a niche, but the niche needs to be good enough, big enough to offer market opportunities. I love what you have on your website. You write bookkeeping and profit adventures. So
so we're changing that up a little bit, because actually at this point we're not offering the back-end bookkeeping compliance services. We've automated that. So I'm changing that up to just business strategy adventures. So shifting, there's so much more that we talk about with our clients than their accounting. Now, a lot of it needs to be rooted in the accounting, in the same way as when you sit down with your doctor and, maybe there's bigger picture things going on, like you've got to be eating right, you've got to be going to the gym, and those are very deep personal things. But what you're looking at with your doctor is your labs, right? The accounting, those metrics on the back end of our business, those are the labs. That is what is telling us, how's your business health? What is the lifeblood of your business? Is your blood pressure high? How's your heart? What's going on? But those conversations lead us into the bigger picture. What choices are you making? How are you leading your lives? But too often people get caught up in just the labs. I need to file my taxes. And once the taxes are done, my conversation with the accountant is over. It comes down to the choices. And the choices are so deep and so personal. And that is why we are actually removing the accounting language from our branding and focusing on the consulting side of things. The consulting is rooted in the accounting, because we've got to be able to look at those labs and see on the reports, how are you doing? But then we don't shy away from the bigger, deeper conversations. And that is something that a lot of accounting professionals don't know how to do yet, which is why I'm teaching them at conferences how to have these conversations with their clients. This is a pretty unique thing that most accountants don't bring to the table. And it's because of that we've been struggling a little bit with our value proposition at Polymath, and really framing the value of that conversation, because a lot of our clients still see us as their bookkeepers. And they're comparing our pricing to other bookkeepers. Well, guess what? Those are not the conversations that we're having. When you compare our pricing to coaching, it's much more in alignment.
Exactly. And it's very interesting what you're saying, because I teach a lot about creating structures, so making choices, and out of these choices, creating structures that serve you in your life and in your business. Yeah. And what you've highlighted, and it's such a really pertinent point. I think that because of our fears and our limiting beliefs around money, everything that has to do with money is kind of put aside until the deadline looms.
And people avoid it.
It's like tax return. Yes. For the for the last 3 years, I've virtually done my tax return 2 weeks before, obviously
Oh,
doing.
good job. 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
That's great.
And I decided to, and I did it on my own before, and it's just such hell. So I found someone who shared my values and became my accountant, someone that I did a coaching course with. And for me, it was very important to find someone who understood what I was doing, and the value that I was bringing into other people's life with my business, that she understood my business. That was very, very, crucial to me. And this year, I read, I was actually preparing a lesson on money, that whole lesson on money that I do with my students. And I had to delve into my own limiting beliefs and in doing research and in my handling of my finances. And I read Smart Women Finish Rich. And I just realized, oh my God, yes, I really don't have control over all my finances. So I thought, okay, I'm going to building structures, yes?
Mhm.
And because I'm now a digital nomad, the first thing I did was buy QuickBooks, especially after hearing you talking about it. And I thought, yes, I need a structure. And last
Yeah.
night I was snapping my little receipts, putting them into QuickBooks and thinking, this is so liberating because, I'm doing it as I go. And
Yes.
there is no kind of fear that appears, or it doesn't become a big job that's insurmountable, yes?
Yeah.
And that drives you totally nuts and potty right at the end. And everyone collides in feeling like that and in making you feel like, oh my God, it's tax return, this tax return, hell has unleashed. So yeah, I really like that, because having these structures also makes you feel totally relaxed.
Mhm.
Yes. So moving on to relaxation, I just love reading your profile. I love the fact so that you're listening to Irish music, considering the color of your hair, and your eyes, was not a surprise. But that you love frolicking with your goats, that made me laugh. And you have snakes as well. So talk to me about, about that, and that other side of you, because you live on a farm, yes?
I do. I live on a farm. So I guess little tiny bit of background. We were talking about the accounting side of things. And I often joke, it's so funny to me that CPA Practice Advisor magazine, which is one of the most widely read publications in the industry, has recognized me a couple of times as one of the top 40 under 40 in the accounting profession, and as one of the most powerful women in accounting, despite the fact that I am not a CPA. I do not even have an accounting degree. I have a biology degree. So my degree is, I've got a Bachelor of Arts in biology focusing on vertebrate zoology and animal behavior. So my college was spent going on safari in Tanzania and observing the megafauna. And the area that I really focused on in both high school and college was actually herpetology. So when you ask about the snakes, the travel, and particularly the interpretive naturalism, nature and the world around us, and love for animals and our environment, those are things that really speak to me. And helping business owners who share those passions is one of my favorite things in the whole wide world, because it makes it so that we are doing those things more effectively together. And that's kind of where the polymath comes back into it. It's this wide variety of skills. And rather than having it be a jack of all trades, master of none, but better than one, I'm taking this array of skills and I'm honing it into a single focus. And I feel like they all kind of work together, and that it's so important to bring our full selves. We talk about the word integrity, to be in integrity. Everyone wants to be in integrity. And so many people limit that as, of things like, well, tell the truth and follow through, do what you say. But that's not everything that is encompassed in the word integrity. The root of the word integrity is the same as the root of the word integer, which is a whole number. Integrity is all about wholeness. It's about bringing our whole selves to the table. It's about showing up completely in our true, full, authentic selves and willing to be vulnerable and emotional and show up regardless of what anybody else might think. That is what integrity really is. And that is what I endeavor to bring my clients. And since I have started doing that, I have found that I am attracting to me the people who are going to naturally resonate with me, rather than trying to be what I think everybody else seems to want me to be. That never works. We need to recognize who we are and be willing to let our inner light shine, regardless of the color.
It's very true. I love this because, living with integrity it's very hard. It's very hard because it's very hard and it's very easy once you decide to do it. But it's very hard in the sense that you then have to accept all the things that you are. Yes, and that's what I love about you. You just say, I'm all these things and I have no problems being all these things. It's beautiful and I'm going to embrace all of this. And actually, a couple of days ago, I was doing a training with 5 Peruvian ladies here. And I always do, one of the first activity I do is a heart map. And they have to divide the heart in little boxes. And they have to write the things that they love in that heart. And then from there, that helps them gain an understanding of what they should be doing, because they should be living wholeheartedly and put everything that they love into creating their vision. And a lot of them were thinking, but how do I put all these things together? And you are such a living example of having done that. It's beautiful to see how all these different things can be shaped into different packages, in the way that it came out for you in a completely different way than it came out for me, whilst we might share very, very common, areas of passion and share the same values. So I love how it's come out to be, so totally unique and so totally authentic to you. It's really, it's beautiful to see.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. So, actually, with a couple of very practical little pieces of advice, if you had to choose an accountant, how would you choose her or him?
So finding somebody who's going to offer the deeper advisory services is important at this point. So there's different kinds of accountants for different needs. So there's a management accountant, like a bookkeeper, who can help you to manage the day-to-day transactions. And that is very different from a tax accountant who helps you prepare a tax return and gives you tax advice. And most businesses need both. Now, hopefully your business doesn't necessarily need an auditor. Auditing is really going through the books and making sure they're correct. And audits are generally required for larger companies or when a company is selling. And auditing is something that is currently in the domain of the CPA and only the CPA. If an audit is being done, then legally it has to be done by a CPA. But the management accounting side of things, there's no certification currently required for that. To prepare a tax return on somebody else's behalf, most places have some kind of certification, whether it be being an enrolled agent on the federal level or a licensed tax preparer, licensed tax consultant on the state level. So if you're going to prepare a tax return for somebody else, generally you need to have some kind of credential for that. But the credential doesn't actually mean that that person's any good at it. On the management accounting side of things, which is where my main focus is on making sure that you're able to make educated business decisions on the day-to-day that are founded in good data that is correct and that actually answers your questions. Finding someone who can do that with you is really important. And a lot of management accountants are still focusing just on the transactional aspect of things. They're not giving the deeper advice. And at this point, a lot of that transactional management can be automated, and it doesn't actually take that long. And it might be a little bit confusing to set up, especially for entrepreneurs who want to be out traveling or going down the river or going on wine tours, whatever it is you do with your customers. You started your business because you want to be doing those things, not because you want to be fussing over your books sitting in an office. So finding people who play at the things that you work at and you can help to make those things easier, but nonetheless, you have to know enough about them to recognize when maybe something isn't going right. Because there are things in your business that you've got to be aware of. And there's a big difference between delegating from a place of knowledge and power and abdicating because you feel like you're losing control. You want to make sure that people are delegating, not abdicating. And so many bookkeepers will, in essence, take the keys away from the business owner and say, oh, honey, I've got this. You go play. And then they may be mismanaging it and the business owner would never even know.
So as a business owner, how do you develop that conscious and responsible relationship with your bookkeeper or with your accountant? Yes, because you might actually want, not have a choice and have to take your bookkeeper to a position of becoming, your accountant and your strategist. Because I work with, many women in developing countries. So sometimes we don't have, they don't have access to that level of skills that you would have in the States. So what are the really important things that as a company owner, they need to set up with their accountant to make that relationship work? For the business and for themselves and also for the accountant, because sometimes the accountant has got their hands tied and they feel that there are things that they ought to do and they can't do.
Yep. So a lot of people see that relationship as getting their gym membership. I'm going to pay the money, I'm going to have this membership, and somehow I'm going to get healthy. It doesn't work that way. You actually have to go to the gym. And you might even need to work with a personal trainer to learn how to use those machines correctly so you don't hurt yourself. And it takes an investment of time. And that abdication that I was talking about, that is the equivalent of getting the gym membership and paying the subscription every month and not actually using it. So when you're working with an accounting professional or with a coach, you've got to show up to your own game. And it's so important to make sure that you're having regular meetings with that person and that you're talking about the deep, important questions and that you understand what are the deliverables? What is the accountability that we're holding each other accountable? Because it's about a relationship and that relationship needs to grow and change over time. So really thinking about what are the expectations and what needs to happen. So with a management accountant, ensuring that your books are clean, correct, and up to date. Apologize for my phone ringing.
Fine, right? That's called life.
Oh, and it won't let me turn it off. There we go. Oh, no. Yeah, it's not letting me turn off the ringer. Well, it'll stop ringing and go to voicemail in just a moment.
Eventually, don't worry.
So when we set up those relationships, making sure that we've got the accountabilities in place and that there's deliverables on a regular basis. So with a management accountant, making sure that they're the books are clean, correct, and up to date each month, and that not only are they delivering, say, reports of, hey, your books are clean and correct, but also that they're going over those reports with the business owner. Hey, these are things that I noticed in your reports that are kind of red flags that maybe we should look at so that you can make more educated business decisions. That's like meeting with your personal trainer. You don't just learn to use the machine, set it and forget it, and now you're doing the same thing. At some point, you're going to reach the next level, and you're going to need to talk to somebody about, okay, that thing that we were doing that was hard for me before is now kind of feeling easy, and I could coast along and keep doing the easy thing, but then you're going to stop growing. And it's really important for these relationships to continue to grow. And that's also really important when we talk about value pricing, that as those relationships to continue to grow, the way that I do my pricing now, not based upon the hour, it's based upon a percentage of the business's gross profit. So looking at the size of my clients and saying, okay, so right now where we're starting, your price is going to be here. As you grow and we're creating win-win scenarios, I want us to be on the same side of the table. And in order to be on the same side of the table on a pricing conversation, it's got to be a win-win, which means that I win when you win. So when your business grows, so does the amount that you're paying me in equal fashion. So if your business grew 60% last month, then my price to you might also grow 60%. Not last month, but last year. So it's over time that we look at and reevaluate the relationship. And sometimes when we get into those pricing conversations, the clients will look at the price increase and say, oh, that's a big price increase. Is this still worth it? Well, look at how the relationship has grown and changed. Look at how your business has grown and changed. Look at how your health has grown and changed. Is that relationship still worth it? An example that I thought of is 10 years ago, I purchased my Prius. It was in 2010. I purchased a 2008 Prius, and I dropped $12,000 or $13,000 on this car used. And when I first bought that car, I was kicking the tires, wondering, ooh, is this worth it? Is this the right fit for me? I've heard that, the battery might die, and that's a $5,000 fix. But having had that car for 10 years and knowing what the price was then, I know that that car's not going to last me forever. At some point, we'll need to renew our engagement. Mm-hmm. And I know, given the experience that I've had, that I want another Prius. I love my car. And thinking about it from that perspective, 10 years later, I know that the car that I'm going to want next, once this car reaches its expiration date, is going to cost more. Because I've grown, the industry's grown, the economy has grown, those relationships grow and change. But now that I know that I love this car, it's worth more to me. And I think that's one of the really interesting kind of poverty mindset conversations that people tend to fall back into old habits, is they see a price increase. And yes, it's natural for us to question, oh, there's a price increase. Is that still worth it? It's always important for us to question. In the same way that it's important to question our limiting beliefs, it's important for us to question our faith. If we're not questioning, then that faith is blind. So yes, it's important to question, but the answer is love. Really looking at the relationship and saying, I love that relationship. Is this worth it to me? And usually the answer is going to be yes, if you're asking the right questions. If you're kicking the tires and getting lost in the spreadsheet of features and return on investment, yes, the return on investment needs to be there. And that's a big question that we want to look at. Absolutely, return on investment. But the big question is the love. Is that relationship working for you? Because if you know in your gut that it's worked in the past, but it's probably going to continue working. And if that relationship has helped you grow to get you where you are now, then it's probably also going to help you get to the next level. And that is what we really want to focus on in a growing relationship where we're invested together.
So what are the top 3 questions that I should ask my accounts manager when I meet with him or when I meet with her, to really have a good overview of what's going on? I mean, I remember many years ago reading the book from Walmart, And I remember that he used to go from one shop to another with a piece of A4 and a table with some KPIs, some indicators, and he would just click, and he would know in less than 30 seconds if that shop was healthy or not. And I always remember the simplicity of this. And running an empire like that I would think, would scare a lot of people. But I just love the fact that that man just knew what was important. So if you had three things, that you would say, okay, this is what you need to be on top of. These are the answers to the questions that you need to have as a tour business. What would this thing be? And maybe there are more than three. Maybe there are five. But let's make it simple.
I'm going to give you one.
Oh my God.
Yep. We're going to break it down to one. We're going to make this really, really simple. So the biggest thing, when you talk about KPIs, key performance indicators, the entire point of setting a KPI is to give you a goal to shoot for and be able to measure your progress to that goal. The key performance indicators that you're setting are the things that you're measuring to see, am I meeting my goals, right? Now, without goals, we're aimless. That's like shooting archery without a target and a blindfold on, right? You don't know what you're shooting for. How are you going to get there? You need to have a target, and you might not make that target every time, but by knowing what you're shooting for and understanding why, getting back to Simon Sinek, why you're shooting for that, then you're able to adjust the target as needed so that you're able to bring it back into alignment with what you're looking for. But I have a client actually that I'm in the midst of severing a relationship with. And the reason why is because they've been setting a goal for the last couple of years to pay off their debt. And we've been going through a KPI process that we like to call profit analysis. That includes focusing on paying off their debt and showing them how they're spending their money and what choices they're making. And they set the goal to pay off their debt. Okay, great. We set up the archery target, and then they went to play golf. Different sport entirely, right? And they haven't been following through on the goal of paying off their debt because something always comes up. There's other priorities, whether it be, we need a new car. So the business is going to buy the car and we're going to do this thing. And car happens to be a Tesla. So we're talking $100,000 car here. Or other things like an office remodel, those sorts of things. But instead of paying off their debt, they've been incurring more debt. And the conversation that I had with them very recently ended up coming down to, so you set these goals, this particular goal, and you asked me to help you measure the KPIs and the progress to that goal. And each quarter we've been meeting and I've been showing you where you've been making other choices. Do we need to set a different goal? Because this isn't working. And their response was, well, I've been thrilled with your services. And I'm like, right, but honestly, there's nothing to be thrilled about here because I'm in the position of having to hold you accountable to a goal that I can see from your actions that you frankly couldn't care less about. And it puts me in the position each quarter of being the storm crow. So if you have other goals that are more important, we could focus on those goals instead and actually set you up for success. But when you tell me that your top goal is your cash flow and paying off your debt, and then you don't follow through, there's nothing I can do to help you. And I ended up severing that client relationship because they showed me again and again over the course of a couple years, quarterly meetings, that they were not going to shift that they were not going to be accountable to their goal. They were thrilled with my services, and I let them go anyway. And I think that that's really important. The one thing, the reason why we set KPIs is to track the effectiveness of our choices. And if our KPIs are not showing us that, then it's all pointless. And the biggest KPI that you can be looking at is your cash flow. That is the one thing. Is money coming in, coming in faster than it's going out? If yes, great. Your bank account balance is going to go up and you will have money with which you can make decisions that will help you grow. If no, you're going to find yourself digging a hole. And that's not sustainable in the long term. Now, sometimes we need to take some risks. Sometimes risks are needed in entrepreneurship. We need to be able to calculate those risks and understand if they're worthwhile. And sometimes that takes reflection with an advisor. And sometimes they don't work out. And we learn from our failures more than we do our successes. And sometimes those lessons are worth it. And sometimes those lessons end up shutting us down. And sometimes shutting down is exactly what we need in order to learn the lessons in our lives that we need to learn. But the biggest KPI in our business is our cash flow. And very often, accounting professionals, when they're working with business owners, will only be looking at their business in hindsight, looking at the reports of, okay, where have you been? But they're not looking at the trends, and they're not projecting it forward into, what are you going to do next? What is your goal? And what are you going to do to keep on track with that goal, so that you're not buying the gym subscription and then not showing up? That's accountability. And when you're in a relationship with an advisor or an accountant, particularly a coaching kind of relationship, and this is something that as a coach, I'm sure that you'll resonate with, it's not our job as leaders to change somebody else's behavior. We can't. Leadership is about confronting others with their freedom, recognizing that freedom and accountability are the same thing. In order to be accountable, you have to be free to make your choices. And in order to be free, have true freedom, you have to be accountable to your choices and take full responsibility for them. You can't have one without the other. So our job is to confront people with their freedom. What do you really want? And how are you going to get there?
That's incredibly powerful, because it also is such a great lesson for all the the women that I work with who own their company and do not follow through. And it's incredibly important to be accountable to oneself, but to also be accountable to one's staff, because when you make promises and then you deviate from these promises, your staff also feels incredibly lost because they don't know what's going on. And you need to have integrity with the decision that you're making and going towards that goal, and not change your mind halfway, without having an explanation, of what is happening. And I think that a lot of entrepreneurs also tend to be loose cannons. And they're like, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that, and I feel like doing this, and they don't spend the time sharing that with their clients. And they also, then it takes them out of their vision, and no one understands what the hell is going on in the company. So for the people that are operating at a higher level and have many staff, I think this is an amazing piece of advice. And with regard to startups, this, and I know it's important for any type of company, but would you say that cash flow is even more important for startups?
Cash flow is important for everybody. The tricky thing with a startup is usually when you're just getting started, you're investing your own personal money into getting the business up and running. And sometimes you need cash in order to get started. And so you're going into debt, either with yourself or with a startup loan or angel investor, something like that. And the main thing is that a limiting belief that we need to bust is the idea that you got to spend money to make money. It's true to an extent, but people use that idea and turn it into a mantra to give them an excuse to spend money. And sometimes those are not effective decisions. And really looking at what is an effective decision, what's going to help us grow. And, books like The Lean Startup. How can we create a minimum viable product that will get us going and we can grow step by step, rather than having to start right off the bat with our full grown vision all at once? Most of the time we need to start with something a little bit smaller, and it can grow with us as we're able to handle that growth. But once again, our business problems are our personal problems in disguise. If it's not working, it's probably because we can't handle it yet.
Yeah, no, it's all music to my ears, and being small I like the idea of always starting small anyway.
Yep. There's something comfortable about being small and staying small. You know, I've
Yeah.
grown and shrank in both income and number of employees. And I gotta say, when it comes, having experienced what I have over the last 10 years of being an entrepreneur, there is something to be said for simplicity. That I, as an entrepreneur, generally make more money and feel more satisfaction when I get rid of complexity and trying to looking at growth as the success. Growth is not necessarily what success is. And the question is, what is success to you as an individual? What makes you feel successful? What makes you feel like you're winning and like you're doing this right? And having had up to 4 employees at once at one point, and right now I'm back to being a solopreneur, I gotta say, not having to carry other people's weight, I feel liberated.
Oh, thank you for sharing that actually, because I am a solopreneur, and it's when you start your business, you always feel, well, you feel that it would be really nice to have some help, yes.
Yeah.
But what I like about what you've just shared is this roller coaster thing, this
Yeah.
thing that you've had stuff and then you've decided to not have them, and maybe in the future it will change. But I
Yeah.
love the fact that you don't let that define you.
Yes.
And that is amazing, because you're not describing this as, oh, I did this and I failed and I had to downsize. No, no, no. It just comes out as, this was my journey to
Yeah.
find out what really is true to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, and we'll need different things at different stages of our lives. And having some of those employees join me for a bit of my journey on this path, it was what I needed at that time.
Mm.
And right now, I need to be figuring this out on my own. And as entrepreneurs, we're all building the plane as we fly it, building the plane in the air out of super glue and duct tape. We're flying by the seat of our pants, making this up as we go. And there is an unfortunate need. I think it's part of imposter syndrome for people to always paint this perfect professional image of, oh, I've got my stuff together and I'm doing this right and I know everything. Mm-mm. That is not integrity. That is not showing up in a true, full, authentic form. So by me saying, hey, I've been on a roller coaster and there's ups and downs, that is something that I can bring to my client relationships. I can empathize with them. I can feel compassion with their situations. I've been there. And it all comes down to, what do you want right now? And sometimes that's a challenging question to recognize. Oh my gosh, what I want is to sever this relationship with somebody that I've had in my life for a decade, and that I feel terrible about that. But you know what? It might be the right thing to do. And let's look at that together. Let's really piece it out. And that's an emotional decision. But so often we end up putting up with things in our lives for much longer than we should, because of other people's expectations and other people's journeys. And it ends up detracting from our own journey, from our own success. And those are things that we need to get past.
So to wrap up, because it's, I could talk to you for another hour. This is so cool. I just love this. If you had to finish with sharing one of the most valuable lessons that you've learned on your journey, on your path, on your flight to entrepreneurship, what would it be?
Oh, it's so hard to choose just one. And I feel like we've gone over so many already in this call, and I want to find something new.
You don't have to, repetition, there is always something, good in repetition anyway. So don't feel the pressure to do that.
I think the biggest one is trust your gut.
Mm.
As entrepreneurs, we have to trust our gut. And that's one of the things that so often we downplay our inner knowledge and we end up complicating things with the data when there's something that we know, but we don't know why we know it. And then we end up getting ourselves all turned around just to come back around to however long passes. And we say, you know what, part of me knew that. And we end up kicking ourselves. If we could trust our gut to begin with and become more effective at listening to that inner voice. Oprah Winfrey, actually, she calls it listening to the whispers. Yeah. I got to see Oprah speak live at the QuickBooks Connect conference in 2015. And she blew my mind. I don't watch a lot of TV or take in a ton of media, so I hadn't really followed Oprah much up to that point. I mean, I knew who she was and I knew bits of her message, but seeing her speak live blew my mind. And she talked about listening to the whispers inside of us and how over time, if we ignore the whispers are like the wind blowing across the top of a pond, creating these little ripples. And if we don't listen, then at some point that wind is going to bring in a cloud and it's going to start to rain. And we'll have little drips creating bigger ripples. And then if we continue to ignore it, then the rain becomes hail, creating bigger splashes like pebbles in the water. And then over time, those pebbles become stones. Those stones become bricks, and then the bricks become a brick wall, and you're beating your head against a brick wall until you learn the lesson that the universe is trying to teach you. But it was there all along, and it didn't have to be that hard if we would just listen to the whispers to begin with. And learning to be more in tune with those whispers, I think, is one of the biggest lessons that we can all learn in our lives, not just in our businesses.
That was amazing. And
thanks, Oprah.
Really, I love Oprah. I don't know if you've seen, I was watching her yesterday. I've just watched the latest from Brené Brown, on Netflix, which was also amazing. But that really concludes beautifully on absolutely and utterly justifying your job title of Priestess of Profits.
Thank you.
This really, I work a lot with my ladies to get them to have inspirational job title. Mine is Merchant of Knowledge and Audacity, and also Vision Whisperer. And
I love it.
I loved Priestess of Profits. I just knew you were my woman when I saw that.
Kindred spirits.
Ingrid, thank you so much for your generosity and for sharing all these incredible information with such honesty and integrity.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to meet you, Carole, and to get the opportunity to have this conversation. This was a lot of fun. And yes, I feel the same way that we're very much in alignment with the way that we are working to make the world a better place. And I love what you're doing with your clients and your students. And let's definitely keep in touch and find more ways to collaborate in the future. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, and have a great time in Oregon with your snakes and your books.
Always. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye, Ingrid. Bye.